In January 2025, the tech industry pitched the public a vision of the future. The Stargate project was unveiled with a $500 billion price tag, designed to build the physical infrastructure required to run artificial general intelligence. The joint venture pooled resources from some of the deepest pockets in the global economy. You had Sam Altman's OpenAI supplying the computing workloads, SoftBank providing the financing, and Oracle tasked with building and running the physical data centers. They stored it in Abilene, Texas. The flagship campus was already under construction, with the first phase engineered to draw 1.2 gigawatts of computing power. To put that physical footprint in perspective, that is enough electricity to run roughly 1 million American homes. But the company responsible for actually laying the concrete was quietly running out of money. Oracle fell into negative free cash flow, burning more cash than it generated from its normal operations. As it accumulated tens of billions of dollars in debt, the company began slashing thousands of jobs, including the specific engineering teams required to deploy the data centers. Then, reports revealed the legal structure governing the partnership had never fully materialized. Months after the massive press conference, the binding corporate agreements defining investment obligations and revenue sharing remained incomplete. There was no signed deal requiring anyone to actually spend $500 billion. The most expensive infrastructure pledge in history was largely a public statement of intent, entirely disconnected from the actual bank accounts of the companies involved. The consequences hit the physical footprint immediately. When it came time to expand the Abilene campus by another 600 megawatts, Oracle could no longer afford the construction costs. The expansion plans died. Around the same time, a severe winter storm hit Texas and tore through the facility's liquid cooling equipment. The system failed under conditions the building was never engineered to handle, and the server racks sat dark for days. Within weeks, Microsoft swept in. They leased the abandoned expansion capacity that Oracle surrendered, locking it in at favorable terms. Oracle had zero leverage to stop their biggest competitor from moving directly into their flagship campus. Microsoft brokered this expansion through an operator called Crusoe Energy Systems. Crusoe did not start out managing massive enterprise infrastructure. They began their corporate life mining Bitcoin using waste gas flared off at oil drilling rigs, running portable servers out of shipping containers. Then Nvidia deposited $150 million directly with Crusoe. This was not a purchase order. Reports described it as a blocking fee, paid specifically to ensure that competing chips from AMD would never touch the servers inside the Abilene facility. A project sold to the public as a highly coordinated technical marvel broke down upon contact with reality. It devolved into a hostile corporate takeover, managed by an operator battling reliability issues, with server racks dictated by a hardware monopoly writing checks to lock out rivals. The failure in Texas is a localized symptom of a much wider industry problem. When you look at the hard data for the entire U.S. artificial intelligence build-out, the physical logistics simply do not add up. The U.S. data center pipeline shows tech companies announcing 240 gigawatts of future capacity, yet only 5 gigawatts is actually under construction. Of that massive pipeline, 60% of planned data centers have absolutely no answer for electricity. They lack signed power contracts. The industry frequently uses the phrase under construction to cover everything from a nearly finished building to a vacant lot with a single steel beam. The only metric that actually measures reality is absorption, which tracks when a data center is fully online, plugged in, and producing revenue. Right now, that critical absorption rate is barely moving. Even if buildings existed, hardware installation is a bottleneck. At current rates, it takes 6 months to rack just 1/4 of Nvidia's GPU sales. Tech companies are hoarding hundreds of thousands of highly sensitive computer chips. They are buying massive hardware orders for data centers that haven't been built, in locations that physically lack the electricity to turn them on. Building out this theoretical grid requires billions of dollars in upfront capital expenditure. That forces a very basic economic question. Who is actually paying to use this infrastructure? This scatterplot tracks software revenues across the artificial intelligence sector. OpenAI and Anthropic claim over $1 billion a month, but they are complete outliers. The rest of the market, hundreds of funded startups, generate minimal revenue while operating at massive, sustained losses. This dynamic forces the big tech monopolies into what financial analysts call an asset-heavy trap. For decades, companies like Microsoft and Google functioned as pure cash machines, selling high-margin software with extremely low physical overhead. Now, they are transforming into low-margin, high-debt construction firms, sinking their cash reserves into complex real estate projects. When you look past the top two companies, the broader consumer demand is missing. Regular software users are not buying AI subscriptions at a volume that justifies the staggering construction bills tech executives are currently racking up. To fund these projects, hyperscalers and their partners are borrowing heavily. They are taking on massive corporate debt loads at high interest rates to purchase highly specialized hardware, and that expensive hardware depreciates almost instantly. Because the installation backlog is so severe, by the time these companies finally get their stockpiled chips into a functional data center, chip manufacturers will have already released a newer, faster generation. The hardware sitting in warehouses will be functionally obsolete before it processes its first workload. The executives greenlighting these massive budgets are navigating the end of the traditional software hypergrowth era. Their legacy products are saturated. Without a new growth narrative to pitch to Wall Street, their stock prices stagnate. So they are approving financial models based entirely on future demand that does not currently exist. We are watching companies borrow tomorrow's money to stockpile rapidly aging components for facilities they cannot power. When the bills finally come due and the consumer demand fails to materialize, the tech industry will be left holding the most expensive pile of scrap metal in economic history.